Tonight on Primetime News, for 11 straight years now, Japan lays claim over Korea-controlled Dokdo Island in its annual defense white paper. Korea's defense ministry demands prompt corrective action from Tokyo. President Park Geun-hye highlights the need to speed up structural reforms in the public, labor, finance, and education sectors to support economic revitalization. Rival political parties continue to clash over two core agendas, issuing a supplementary budget and the NIS wiretapping scandal. Stay with us for these stories and much more. Hello and welcome to Primetime News on this Tuesday, July 21st. I'm Daniel Choy.
And I'm Hwang Ji-hye. Thank you for joining us. It will soon be 70 years since Korea's liberation from Japan's colonial rule, yet there's little progress in easing tensions between Seoul and Tokyo.
Making matters worse is Japan repeating its claim to the Korea-controlled Dokdo Island in its annual defense white paper for the 11th straight year against strong objections from Korea. Our Hwang Ji-hye starts us off.
Korea slams Japan for renewing its claim to Korea's easternmost Dokdo Island in its annual defense policy report. In this year's report, presented to the cabinet on Tuesday, Tokyo described Dokdo, known as Takeshima in Japanese, as part of Japanese territory and said that it is part of an unresolved territorial dispute. It's the 11th straight year that Tokyo has laid claim to Dokdo in the white paper.
The South Korean government will sternly counter any provocations by Japan regarding Dokdo, which is Korean sovereign territory in terms of history, geography, and international law.
Seoul's foreign ministry summoned a senior official at the Japanese embassy in Korea to protest the claim. Korea's defense ministry also released a statement condemning the white paper and urging prompt action to correct it along with measures to avoid such unjust behavior. Dokdo, which lies closer to South Korea in the body of water between the Korean peninsula and Japan, has been one of the thorniest issues between the two neighbors. The South Korean government warned that Tokyo's repeated claim to Dokdo is an act of historical revisionism and will inevitably hurt bilateral relations. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Korea's Defense Ministry spokesman Kim Min-seok at a regular press briefing today reaffirmed that no vessels, especially military vessels from Japan, are allowed near Dokdo Island without Korea's approval.
Kim made it clear that there are no exceptions, even if Japan gets the green light to exercise its right to collective self-defense currently under consideration. Saying Japan's territorial claims to Dokdo have already strained bilateral ties, he warned that if Tokyo chooses to stick with the claims, bilateral military ties between the two will also continue to worsen. And the Japanese defense paper comes as Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's government pushes for a stronger military role by changing the country's pacifist constitution. The move has drawn widespread criticism from scholars, experts, and the Japanese public, even the New York Times, which made it the target in an editorial. Our Son Jung-in has more.
The editorial supports Japan's desire to seek a greater international role, especially in Asia and with the rise of China. However, it says the problem isn't with the goal, but with the way Abe is pursuing it. Abe has long been trying to modify Japan's constitution, which permits the military to engage only in self-defense, to allow the military to engage in collective self-defense or defending an ally under attack. The newspaper notes that under normal circumstances, revising the constitution requires 2/3 approval in both houses of parliament, followed by a national referendum. It points out that Abe circumvented that process by calling for a reinterpretation of the constitution and following up with legislation in the parliament, where his Liberal Democratic Party-led coalition has a majority in the upper and lower houses. Unlike a formal constitutional change, ordinary legislation only requires a majority vote with no need for a referendum. Abe's tactics, however, have not stopped around 10,000 scholars and experts from voicing their opinions on the matter. They signed a petition opposing the new legislation and issued statements demanding the security bills be abolished as they fear it could lead the country into war. Thousands of citizens have participated in demonstrations against the legislation, and Abe's approval ratings have dropped sharply over the last week to 38%. 손정인, Arirang News.
Let's zoom in on the Hermit Kingdom. North Korea has reaffirmed that it will not give up its nuclear weapons anytime soon and rebuffed ideas that it could follow Iran's lead with a nuke deal of its own. The North's foreign ministry said in a statement carried by state-run news on Tuesday that Pyongyang has no interest in pursuing a nuclear agreement with the U.S. as long as Washington maintains hostile policies towards the regime. It cited constant military threats from the U.S. and regular military combined drills with South Korea. The North's nuclear program remains a major regional concern as the communist state has conducted several atomic tests, with the most recent recorded in 2013.
Shifting gears now to politics, Korea's main rival parties are trying to reach a compromise over how to handle a controversial hacking scandal surrounding the National Intelligence Service. Despite rounds of talks, they're still on different pages. Kim Young-gil has more.
Rival parties met again on Tuesday, but only to reaffirm their differences over how to settle the hacking and surveillance scandal engulfing Korea's spy agency. The ruling's Haenuri Party urged the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy to stop overstating allegations against the NIS.
What I would like to tell the opposition is that if the government or the NIS explains something regarding a certain suspicion, they should have the courage to acknowledge it.
The ruling's Haenuri Party is demanding a field inspection be conducted at NIS headquarters sometime next week, and as well as briefings for the Parliamentary Intelligence Committee. However, the MPAD wants to open a parliamentary hearing on the matter and is looking to get prosecutors to open an independent probe.
The hacking scandal is teeming with suspicions. The NIS said the hacking program was used to strengthen cyber terrorism against North Korea. Then it doesn't make sense for the spy to have deleted the information.
Allegations surrounding the NIS intensified after one of its employees committed suicide and left behind a note stating the spy agency had not meddled in elections and did not spy on Korean citizens. With lawmakers deadlocked over this scandal, parliamentary approval for an extra budget bill has been delayed and may not pass within this week. The supplementary budget of $10 billion is aimed at covering MERS-related fallout and reviving the local economy. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Nearing the middle of her 5-year term in office, President Park Geun-hye is trying to accelerate her campaign to revitalize the economy through a series of structural reforms. In particular, she's teaming up with the ruling party to reform the labor sector. Our Choi Sun reports.
Listing the 4 major areas that will be subject to reform, the public sector, labor, finance, and education, President Park Geun-hye at Tuesday's cabinet meeting said that without the reforms, the next generation will end up carrying a huge financial burden. She also emphasized that public support will be essential to the success of her reform drive.
개혁이 왜 필요한지, 개혁의 결과 무엇이 좋아지는지 그것을 잘 알려서 국민들께서 자발적으로 개혁에 동참하도록 해야 합니다.
The president then directed the focus to the roughly 1 million university graduates who are struggling to find jobs, saying Korea's growth depends on young people finding high-quality jobs. She then urged labor, management, and the government to think about the country's young people and to resume labor reform negotiations that have been suspended since April. Ruling party leader Kim Moo-sung, who recently had a one-on-one with the president, has expressed his determination to push for labor reforms. Since the tripartite talks were halted, the government has been trying to enforce a salary peak system, which involves extending the retirement age while reducing workers' salaries. This, in turn, is expected to encourage employers to hire more young people. Labor unions and the main opposition party oppose the system, saying it will not effectively resolve the high youth unemployment rate. Party leader Moon Jae-in has said without public consent, the government's plan will further aggravate conflict between labor and management. The two opposing sides are adamant about their positions on the salary peak system and some other contentious issues. That is sure to turn up the heat on President Park's reform campaign, which is expected to become a political hot potato in the latter half of the year. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
And while the government targets a 3% range growth for this year, given such reforms, the economy's current circumstances are not that bright. Korea's Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan says the second quarter growth figures are expected to be much lower compared to the first quarter due to the MERS outbreak and drought that pulled the brakes on the slowly recovering economy. The Bank of Korea is set to release growth figures for the April to June period on Thursday. But for the same reason that the finance minister cited and slowing exports, global investment banks have doubt over whether Korea will be able to reach its growth target for 2015. Our Kim Min-ji tells us more.
Korea's growth forecast for the second quarter is not so rosy. Citing 14 global investment banks, Bloomberg says the Korean economy is expected to grow an average of 2.7% in the second quarter from a year earlier. Barclays' projection was the highest at 3.1%, while Nomura and IHS Economics both predict the economy will grow 2.4%. The Korean economy posted 2.5% growth in the first quarter, and the Dole projections for the second have raised questions about whether Korea will be able to reach its growth target of 3% for the year. The bank cited an unexpected drop in spending and a blow to the tourism industry due to the MERS outbreak, as well as a decline in exports as some of the main factors. An economist from Morgan Stanley, for one, warned that Korea's growth rate for exports could dip to levels not seen since the global financial crisis. This comes amid a general slowdown in the global economy, especially in China, which is Korea's main trading partner. The weak Japanese yen has also eroded the price competitiveness of Korean exports. The expert predicts the country's exports will fall 3.1% in the second half of the year. Considering the figure fell 5% in the first half, Korea's exports are expected to record minus 4% growth this year, the lowest since 2009 when exports fell almost 14%. To reverse the trend, some of the banks call for more expansionary measures to prop up growth. HSBC said more rate cuts are needed in addition to a planned budget supplement of about $10 billion by the Korean government. ANZ Bank also said without a sufficient level of support from the government, Korea will not be able to reach 3% growth in 2015. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Here's the latest on the Miller's respiratory syndrome situation here in South Korea. No new infections for 16 days straight. The next question seems to be when and how the country will declare itself MERS-free. Our Kim Ji-yeon has the details.
Korean health authorities say they'll follow the international standards set by the World Health Organization to determine when to declare an end to the MERS outbreak. Under WHO rules, Korea can make the declaration 28 days or twice the incubation period after the last person to contract an infection has made a full recovery. Assuming that person makes a full recovery by July 22nd, Korea can declare itself MERS-free on August 19th. The health ministry had initially indicated it would make the declaration in early August, weeks ahead of the WHO recommendation. As of Tuesday evening, the number of MERS cases stands at 186, and there have been no new infections for the past 16 days. Just 14 people are still undergoing treatment for MERS. 12 of them have tested negative for the virus in 2 successive tests, meaning they have practically recovered pending further testing. They've been moved out of isolation and into a general ward to aid their recovery. Of the 2 remaining patients, one has had conflicting results in 2 separate tests, and the other has tested positive for the virus twice in a row. Both will continue their current treatment regimen until they are fully cleared of infection. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
If things go according to plan, traces of resident registration number on the internet will be removed by the end of the year, all thanks to a revised law in 2012 that aims to strengthen the protection of personal information online by prohibiting businesses from collecting and storing the numbers. Starting next year, when the law goes into effect, businesses caught breaking it could be fined up to $26,000. To raise awareness of the new policy, the Korea Communications Commission is running a public information campaign that will continue for the rest of the year. It also provided support to 15,000 local websites with more than 100,000 visitors a day to help them wipe their databases clean of personal information. As we get closer to the peak of the summer holiday season here in Korea, the government is preparing for a surge in domestic travel, especially on the country's roadways. The Transportation Ministry announced on Tuesday special measures to battle holiday traffic. Daily operation of public transportation, including trains, express buses, airplanes, and ferries, will get a boost from July 24th to August 9th. A survey by the Korea Transport Institute revealed nearly 40% of vacationers plan to hit the road during the first week of August. And it's estimated some 78 million people will be on the move during the 17-day period the measures are in place.
And for our top international headlines, we now turn to our Lee Sun-ho at the News Center.
Our focus today, FIFA's president announces a reform task force, Toshiba's chief executive resigns, Burundi holds controversial elections, and hackers blackmail a dating website.
Let's start with the FIFA story. Sun-ho, what did FIFA's leader have to say about reforming football's governing body?
Well, outgoing FIFA president Sepp Blatter said that he would set up a reform task force to overhaul the football organization. Now, this comes as the governing body has been pressured to enact change after a string of allegations of corruption. Our Park Se-young has this story.
It's time for an overhaul at the top of the corruption-riddled governing body of world football. A presidential election will be held on February 26 next year to elect a successor to Sepp Blatter. The announcement came as FIFA's executive committee met in Zurich. Blatter put an end to speculation and insisted he would not be standing as a candidate. He also announced a series of reforms, saying an 11-person task force would be set up to leave the troubled body in better shape after the worst corruption scandal in its history. The changes suggested on Monday include more transparency on executive salaries and term limits for top officials.
My duty and mission now is to defend the institution FIFA, and not to defend myself. And I am happy that today the executive committee, together with the confederations, they have said, yes, President, we will help you. We take also the responsibility to go and defend FIFA.
With the date for the election set, the field of candidates will begin to take shape. From Korea, former FIFA Vice President Chung Mong-jun has declared his intention to run for the post. But for now, the press conference will probably be best remembered for its unexpected moment of comedy. British comedian Simon Brodkin threw a bundle of fake banknotes over Blatter, saying the money was for North Korea 2026. He was quickly removed from the venue by security, and Blatter left the room while staff cleared up the dollar bills. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
And moving over to Japan, an investigation into corporate giant Toshiba showed that it had inflated its profits, marking the biggest company scandal the nation has seen in years. The president, Hisoa Tanaka, had known about the issue and decided to step down along with 7 other high-level executives following the independent probe. Now, he stated that he took what had happened very seriously and apologized to all his shareholders. The scandal has rocked the nation to the point that even the Japanese government publicly expressed its regret.
It is very regrettable that corrections had to be made to Toshiba's securities reports.
According to a report that was released on Monday, the company had overstated its profits over the years by around 152 billion yen, which is about $1.22 billion US, which is around 3 times the initial estimate of the misreporting. It also said that the inappropriate accounting was carried out according to mismanagement decisions, which could not be challenged. This led to the betrayal of stakeholders' trust. Following the scandal, Toshiba said that Chairman Masashi Muromachi will take over as president for the time being. And heading over to Africa, a controversial presidential election took place in Burundi on Tuesday, which has been plagued by violence and protests. Opposition parties boycotted the vote, refusing to acknowledge President Pierre Nkurunziza running for a third term. He is being criticized as opponents say he's seeking another 5 years in office, which flies against their own constitution. Now, however, the president cited a court ruling justifying the fact that he could actually run again. As voting began, areas in support of the president, of course, saw the most ballot lines, while other regions barely saw any voters at all. Those that did come forward to cast in their ballots did not hide their apprehensions.
The person I have come to vote for, I will ask to create safety. The country should be stable, all should be protected, and safety should be guaranteed.
The country has become increasingly unstable as 2 individuals were killed in blasts just hours before the vote. The area has seen weeks of demonstrations, a failed coup attempt, and fights between rebel soldiers and the military. The nation is up against its worst crisis since 2005, when a civil war came to an end. And lastly, hackers have started to leak personal user information that they stole from an adultery website, Ashley Madison, and threatening to expose it all publicly unless the site is taken down. The hackers called themselves the Impact Team and also have possession of sensitive data from other hookup sites, including Cougar Life and Established Men. They claim to have the information of around 37 million customers, ranging from their actual names, naked pictures, credit card details, and secret sexual fantasies. The group wants the sugar daddy sites, such as Ashley Madison and Established Men, to be shut down. Now, Avid Life Media, which is the parent company of Ashley Madison, said in a statement on Monday the intruders were able to gain access to the data through various unauthorized points on the website. Now, South Korea may also not be immune to the breach, as the site has been hugely popular in the nation with over 100,000 members. And that wraps up your international news for now. I'll see you again tomorrow.
It was a very muggy Tuesday. We're talking about high humidity levels, isolated showers, and gray skies. And it seems like more rain is on the way for tomorrow, so keep that umbrella handy for your Wednesday, as 5 to 40 millimeters of rainfall is expected across the nation. And the discomfort index will increase as well because of the high humidity and rising temperatures. Readings should be a few degrees higher than today, peaking at 30 here in the capital. And other regions like Daegu and Gwangju will see a high of 31 and 29, while Busan tops out at 27. And as for the other parts, it seems like Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 30 and 29, while Dokdo rises to 25. Now, rain is forecast throughout the week, and from Friday to Saturday, the central regions, including the capital, will receive heavy rain, even more than the southern provinces. In the meantime, the 12th typhoon of the season, Halola, is headed towards Japan and could possibly make impact by this weekend. So be sure to check back for more updates on that tomorrow. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
plenty of knowledge and wisdom up for grabs there.
Just remember to bring your own container and open up.
That brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for staying with us.
We'll be back tomorrow at the same time. Goodbye for now.